Councilmember Reed are all, have all called in. Do I have a motion to excuse Deputy Mayor Hochstetter from
I
tonight's
make a
meeting?
motion that we excuse Deputy Mayor Hochstetter.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moved by Councilmember Botetto, seconded by Councilmember Cole, and it's unanimous. Now we need a motion to excuse Councilmember Charla Newman.
I make a motion we excuse Charlotte Newman.
Motion by Barbara Botetto, second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimous. And now we need a motion to excuse Councilmember Patrick Reed from tonight's meeting, who called in.
I make a motion we excuse Patrick Reed from tonight's meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Botetto. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Second by Councilmember Cole. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right. So I will open the City Hall study session of March 14th, 2022. Currently, resolution number 1618, 6-year transportation improvement program annual update is listed on the agenda for the last two, and for item number 3, and Public Works project update is item number 4. And could I get a motion to amend the agenda, switching the items from 3 to 4 and from 4 to 3 on the agenda? They're kind of in a wrong order.
I'll make a motion that we revise the agenda according to the mayor's wishes.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuart. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Botetto. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. So I will call to order the meeting of March 14th, and Councilmember Botetto, roll call here. Are you?
Here.
Okay, Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Cole,
Here.
Councilmember Hochstetter is not here. Councilmember Newman is not here. Councilmember Reed is not here. Councilmember Stuart.
Here.
All right. So let's move on to study session business. Number 1, epic update, Lahar evacuation drill briefing. I think we have Andy McCurdy.
Good
Take it
evening.
away.
Let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can all see my intro slide there. I'm going to be talking tonight about something called the East Pierce County Lahar Rapid Action Plan, and this is a project that's being worked on by the EPIC team. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what EPIC is. And also joining me here in case there's questions I can answer is Kirsten Hoffman she's the emergency manager from City of Puyallup Emergency Operations Center, and she's kind of the team leader for the EPIC team. This is a beautiful view of Mount Rainier from the rim of Mount St. Helens. And as much as it's a beautiful site, it's kind of an ominous thing when we look to the south in the city of Sumner and see Mount Rainier there because of the threat that it causes in our region, particularly in the area of Lahar activity. So when I talked about this tonight, I'm going to be talking about it from a couple different perspectives. One of them is what is the team that's doing this work? Another part of it is what's the plan that's going to help us act during an emergency. And then the third thing I'm going to talk about is the Lahar drill. That is what we're going to actually do to kind of test our response here on April 29th. So EPIC, the acronym stands for the East Pierce Interlocal Coalition. And I think it's about a year ago now, the cities here in East Pierce County started to recognize that they were kind of struggling meeting the needs of each local community. There are federal, state, and county emergency management departments that support local jurisdictions in their efforts to plan for especially natural disasters and terrorist attacks and so on. But each of these communities has specific needs, and most of these communities involved in East Pierce County here have part-time personnel that do emergency management planning as just one of their ancillary duties. But when you look at something like Lahar hazard, it's a significant event, and if it does happen in our lifetimes, it's going to be catastrophic. So there's a lot of planning and exercising that needs to go along with it. So the communities in East Pierce County, specifically Bonnie Lake, Sumner, Ording, Buckley, Wilkeson, Carbonado, and Puyallup basically got together because Puyallup was the only of those organizations that had a full-time emergency management team. And we basically decided to collaborate. We have some agreements between the communities about how that would look. The agreements also include our local fire departments, our police departments, and other emergency managers. Oftentimes emergency management may fall within a public works department or something else. As an example, in the city of Bonnie Lake, the emergency manager is also their public works director. So in the city of Sumner, as the deputy chief of police, I am also the emergency manager for the city. So I'm a part of this EPIC planning team. And it's been a great, in 30 years in law enforcement, I've been involved in a lot of different teams and groups. And I will say that this EPIC team is probably one of the most functional of those teams I've ever been involved in. The group's a lot of fun to work with, but we've really been getting through a lot of work in the short amount of time that I've been on the team, about 6 months, and the team in general for about a year. They've got a lot of work done. So when we talk about emergency management planning, really what we talk about is prevention, mitigation, response, recovery, and preparation. And we look at that emergency management cycle, and it's a continuous cycle. And as we start to look at what hazards are affecting our community, as COVID is an example, that was kind of a unanticipated in the specific nature of the threat. But there had been planning in place to deal with pandemic. But what we learned from that COVID response, when we look at the emergency management cycle, we're going to change a lot of the ways we do things as a result of what we learned during our response. So we look at this cycle of constant improvement. We're constantly looking ways to prevent the impacts on local community. We're trying to mitigate what the impacts these types of disasters can have. We're constantly looking at how we can prepare the city as well as the community living within our city and working in our city. And part of that has to do with how we plan for government's response and then how we assist the community in recovering after an event. Now, this emergency management cycle can be for small events, like we have frequent flooding in the Summer Valley, and we will go through this emergency management cycle in response to even small flooding, but it's also something that we would use to prepare for catastrophic events like a Lahar from Mount Rainier. Now, the preparedness part of that cycle, typically what we look at is the planning, organizing equipment in our communities, training, conducting exercises, and then we constantly evaluate to improve how we respond. So this preparedness cycle is constantly going, and as new threats are identified or new tools are purchased, we constantly want to train and plan and exercise how we're going to use those so that during a real event, we're prepared and that we're not caught flat-footed when something actually happens. So some of the considerations we have during this planning process is we try to approach all emergency management planning with what we call an all hazards approach. So all hazards approach basically looks at mitigating factors and equipment and different approaches that we would activate during an event. And typically these would also help us in different types of events. So as an example, some of the preparations that would help us during a flood also can help us during a wildfire, which also may help us during a Lahar, which also could help us during a terrorist attack. So the planning considerations, by using that all hazards approach, we try to consider all hazards, but we try to look at how the resources that we have are going to help us in a variety of those challenges. By doing that, we engage with a planning team. EPIC is the planning team for us locally here in Sumner. And then as a team, we plan for how we're going to train and exercise to meet our needs. Since I've been here in the city of Sumner, the biggest exercise that I've participated in was when the city of Puyallup did a sheltering exercise. And one of the threats to our community is during extreme hot or cold weather, there are members of our community, especially if there's power outages or other things that affect them, that need to have a place to go to get out of the heat or the cold. So I was able to participate when the city of Puyallup did an exercise to test their hot and cold sheltering program. And it's really interesting to see all the things that come out of those, and they do a comprehensive review of that to evaluate their plans and then make any revisions that are necessary. So one of the most catastrophic threats in our community is the Lahar hazard. And if you're not familiar with what the Lahar means, it's actually an Indonesian word that describes mud and debris flow. and typically it originates from the slopes of a volcano. And there are different types of Lahar activities. It could be really small scale isolated Lahars, but typically what we're talking about here would be a massive event. And what we've been training and planning for are for these short notice or no notice Lahars, where typically we would have a sensor activated on the mountain, and the U.S. Geologic Survey would receive that activation, would process and analyze it, and then community notification would occur to allow for a evacuation. So here's a map of the Sumner Puyallup area. If you look kind of up at the top of the map, where there's a kind of a yellow line that kind of turns purple as it goes north, that would be the city of Sumner. And if you've never seen a map of the Lahar, if you think about the whole Sumner Valley used to be a very deep ravine, and over many thousands of years, there have been multiple Lahar events, and the floor of that valley has risen with each of those Lahar events as the debris accumulates. So the floor that now is that rich soil that makes up the floor of the city of Sumner and the cities of downtown Puyallup and so on, that's actually past Lahar debris. And what they anticipate is during a catastrophic Lahar event, that the floor of the city of Sumner would rise by about 40 feet. So the new floor in the city of Sumner would be 40 feet higher than it is now, and we would never be able to dig out or recover the community underneath that. And this is a catastrophic event. It's unlikely to happen during our lives, but when we look at emergency management and all hazards planning, we really have to plan for those events, that even if they're unlikely to happen, because if they are, there could be a much larger toll on loss of life, as well as impacts on the community if we don't plan for it. So again, there's different types of Lahar activity that could occur that could affect different regions. The one we're specifically planning for would be one that would flood the Ording, Puyallup, and Sumner valleys, and then actually the debris would end up exiting out by Tacoma into the Puget Sound. So Lahars pose a significant threat to our community. It's greater than from lava flows. The Mount Rainier is actually an effusive volcano. It's not an explosive one. So it would basically create a lot of heat, and that heat in that volcano, as the volcano actually expanded, it would start to release some hot material that would melt large portions of the glacier that are on Mount Rainier, and that's what would create the Lahar flow. So they look and behave like flowing concrete. If you actually go to YouTube and you Google Lahar, you can see some videos of some Lahars in different parts of the world, and you can see just how scary it is. It looks like a big wall of concrete kind of flowing through a valley and filling it up. The past ones have probably traveled at about 40 to 50 miles per hour, and they're as much as 100 feet or more thick in areas. And again, that's where it filled in those valleys that now we know as the rich floor of Sumner and Puyallup. And then as they go farther out, they thin, and then they slow down to about 15 to 25 miles an hour as they get further away from the source. And then these deposits from these past Lahars are found in the valleys that start at the base of Mount Rainier and come all the way out into Puget Sound. So one of the things that we've done to plan for the eventuality of a Lahar would be what we call the East Pierce County Lahar Rapid Action Plan, or RAP. And this has been a big body of work that's been accomplished by this EPIC team. Each community has its own unique RAP plan that meets the needs of its own community. It's designed to give first responders basically some directions so that they know what to do to try to mitigate the impacts of that Lahar as it comes through. Typically what they would do during this no notice or short notice is that they would refer to that guide, and then they would go to predetermined locations where they would start to direct traffic out of the danger area into safer areas. And typically most of the city of Sumner is going to evacuate into the Bonnie Lake area. The Bonnie Lake has to be ready to receive us. It's pretty massive if you think about the entire population of Sumner. You have to also consider that it would be the businesses and the commercial areas and so on. The light industrial areas in downtown Sumner would all have to evacuate. I personally have been involved in a major natural disaster back when I was a police explorer down in the Bay Area. I actually was working during the Loma Prieta earthquake when the bridges collapsed. And just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, I was at an intersection in the city of Hayward, which is a pretty good distance away from where the bridges collapsed. And I was standing in the middle of the intersection for about 12 hours. And during that 12 hours, not a single vehicle moved. It was complete gridlock in the whole region. So, if we do know that if there is this type of a lahar, we're going to try to get people out of the valley, but most people are going to have to evacuate on foot. So there are a number of components within that rapid action plan. There's a critical action guide. There's determines roles and responsibilities for all first responders and other government officials and school district employees and so on. There are specific procedures for different agencies. There's more general rapid action procedures, maps, communications plans, public messaging, and other considerations for people with access and functional needs. So now that we have this plan, next thing we need to do is we need to test the plan. We need to see if it works. The plan, the best plan in the world is only as good as whether or not you've exercised and tested and practiced it. So on April 29th, we're planning a full-scale Lahar evacuation exercise. And the school districts in Puyallup, Ording, Sumner Body Lake, White River, and Carbonado are all going to participate. And the ones that are in the valley that would be directly affected by Lahar are going to do an evacuation to predetermined locations. Those schools that are up on the hills are actually going to be doing shelters in place. We believe that this is the largest evacuation drill ever, simultaneous. It's going to be about, I've heard the number of about 13,000 students evacuating. In the city of Sumner, we anticipate, depending on how many kids show up after their parents know there's this drill, we think as many as about 3,000 students should be participating. And all of our schools are actually going to walk on foot to the YMCA parking lot and be picked up by buses and brought back to school. So here's a map that shows the evacuation routes. As you can see, the Sumner Middle School, Maple Lawn Elementary, and the Early Learning Center are going to evacuate to the east over to YMCA. And then the Sumner High School, Eli Hill High School, and Daffodil Elementary are going to go south and then to the east to the YMCA. So obviously, this is a lot of kids moving. It's pretty stressful for everybody involved, including the teachers and administrative staff and law enforcement, and fire, and our public works personnel that are going to be working on this. We are also going to evacuate City Hall, and the school district's administration and maintenance building is going to evacuate as well. And again, the goal of this is to kind of see what it would look like during a real event, so we get some idea of whether or not our plan is feasible and whether it's realistic, or if we need to adapt it somehow to better meet the needs of our students and keep them safe. So as I mentioned before, this whole project is being done by the EPIC team. There's actually a website for EPIC that's www.epiceoc.com, which is epicemergencyoperationcenter.com. I would encourage you to go to the website and take a look. There's a really interesting presentation on there about the cold storage fire in the city of Puyallup last year that gives a lot of descriptions of what happened and some photos. It's a really great example of some of the amazing amount of work that gets done during a major catastrophic event like that. So I'd encourage you to go on there and look at it. During a real event, you'll see on that website that there are maps posted, and those maps are kept up to date by our personnel in the Emergency Operations Center. So as an example, they would be using those maps to show people where it's safe to evacuate to. We also recently have purchased something called Code Red, which is a public notification system similar to PC Warm, but it's something that we have a little more local control over. And then typically what would happen is during a major event, somebody in the Emergency Operations Center or the police department or fire department would send a message out through Code Red to notify the public about emergent actions that they need to take because of a public safety hazard. Here's what that looks like. If you go to that EPIC EOC, here's a picture of that map that actually shows the evacuation routes for Lahar. The whole Lahar evacuation route program is coordinated regionally. Each of the first responders need to know exactly where they need to go. As an example, we're going to have police officers that are going to stage both on the east, west, and north sides of town to direct vehicles up. But then those first responders also have to have a plan to get themselves out of there because they also don't want to be there when the Lahar comes to and wait long enough to where they're going to risk their own lives unnecessarily. So basically, especially in the city of Sumner, all residents are going to be impacted and need to know what routes to use. It's most likely that most people are going to have to evacuate by foot, which is going to mean that as a community, we're all going to have to come together to take care of each other because some people are not going to be able to walk out and are going to need other people to help them do so. Also on the EPIC EOC website, there's a lot of information about preparation, how to create a disaster plan for yourself or your business, some information in there about how to plan for your family, some things that you should have for your go bag in case there is an event. And I think the Lahar hazard, even though it's something that's unlikely to occur in our lifetimes, it is still something that's significant enough and is going to happen again at some point. So it's still a little bit of preparation when the real event happens is going to make it a lot less stressful for you and your family. And that's most of my presentation. And as I said, Kirsten's on the call as well. I don't know if she has anything else to add that I missed, or if anybody has any questions.
Do we have any questions for Andy? Barbara?
So is there any plan for people to go up to Edgewood, since that is closer, I guess?
Yeah, the issue with going to Edgewood is that the roadways and walkways heading up there are pretty steep. Part of the City Hall evacuation plan actually sends City Hall personnel up, underneath the overpass by Old Cannery and then up into Edgewood that way. The bulk of the city, just based on on where the population is distributed, it makes more sense for most of them to go east and up into Bonnie Lake. But people who are more on the west side of town, basically, people should have a plan for where they're going to go, but have alternate plans as well in case they find obstructions in that direction.
And then, it says April 29th event. How soon are you going to publicize it so the public is aware of it going on?
Well, as much as it sounds fun to just surprise everybody with it, I think we are going to do a lot of advanced notification there. We've been working really closely with the school district administration office, including their information officers, and we're currently crafting the messages. They're first going to be notifying. We've just finished the process of notifying the school employees. Shortly here, they're going to be notifying students and parents, and then we're going to be pushing the information out more widely. I know that Kirsten may have some more updated information on this, but I know the PIOs from all the jurisdictions involved have started meeting as well, and they're going to be sharing that as well. And there I see Kirsten. You have something to add there?
No, thank you, Deputy Chief McCurdy. I just wanted to, first of all, Andy, great presentation. And I would agree, our epic planning team is probably one of the most accomplished teams I've had the pleasure of working with. So really appreciate your support of all the work we've been up to as well. So the public information offers from all the participating jurisdictions and the school districts just met last week. So they're all working together on the message coordination, and the school districts really emphasize the importance of letting the parents and the community members involved at the schools know first. So they're working on that messaging right now. And then we anticipate in early April, we'll have messages going out to the public about the exercise. But we really want to make sure that the school communities and that the families and all those parents and guardians are informed. And I have a kiddo who's participating in this exercise in the Puyallup School District, and I appreciate that. And we support the school districts, as we can, because this is a really important exercise for all of them.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good to hear. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Cole, you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Councilmember Boteto asked my question. So, but I do actually have one other quick one, and that is, well, how long do we have to evacuate? I mean, I know you can't really give me a exact time, but I'm curious as to sort of an estimate.
So obviously, Ording's timeline is much shorter than ours because they're closer to the volcano. My understanding, and Kirsten, correct me if I'm wrong, that the USGS is going to be coming out with some revised timelines here shortly because they recently did a new study. My understanding is it's, again, there's a whole lot of factors involved here. We're looking at planning for 45 minutes to an hour, probably closer to the 45-minute mark as the summer time. Is that close, Kirsten?
Yeah, they've said anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour or two. As Deputy Chief McCurdy said, there's some things that have to go right so we can get those notifications out quickly. So our message to the public generally is when you hear the Lahar sirens or when you get that message on your phone or through your weather radio, you evacuate right away because we don't know how much time everyone's going to have to get to higher ground. But we were working closely with our partners at the county, the state, and the USGS level, and at the Mount Rainier National Park, because the quicker that we can find out if something's heading our way, the quicker we can notify all of our impacted residents.
And I also want you to realize the type of volcanic activity can change it as well, because there can be, we're talking about no notice is short notice Lahar, which is that 45 minute to an hour, or maybe 2 hour at the outside. But there are other times, and one of my biggest worries actually is if we were to have volcanic activity where there's threat of Lahar and we evacuated, and then we're like, oh, you've been out for a couple days, but oh, false alarm, and send them back home and then evacuate again. So, in part of the planning process, we've been trying to learn a lot from USGS about what the different mechanisms are to trigger the sensors and their analysis that goes into determining how much time we have, and the whole valley, the alarm systems and so on there. That so typically what we're doing, we're kind of planning right now for worst case scenario, which is that no notice Lahar, which is, I'm telling everybody 45 minutes. And but in reality, there's just lots of other types that could also be an issue. And as kind of being new to the whole emergency management world, the Lahar thing kind of freaks me out, to be honest, because I think about how catastrophic it'll be when it occurs. But it also makes me feel a little better to know that it's, planning for worst case scenario, but in reality, that's, the likelihood of it happening in our lifetimes is still pretty low.
Okay, great.
I have
Thank
a
you.
couple questions. Is the public invited to join in, or is this kind of exclusively for the schools?
No, it's exclusively for schools. We are trying to plan them right now. I'm involved in the Philip Sumner Leadership Institute through the Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
And we are talking about sponsoring a fun run. My
Right.
idea was it would be the Run for Your Life fun run. And we basically either want to go up Corliss Hill, or we're possibly going to do it around Bradley Lake and Pierce College campus, and kind of to raise awareness about the concept and about emergency preparation in general. That's also volcano preparation awareness month. So we're kind of hoping, though, that if the public wants to get involved, that they'll focus on that. But the schools are going to have their handfuls just with their students. So we're limiting it just to school personnel and first responders and public works and so on.
All right. And will they use the sirens, or will they just say go?
No, they actually have, we're going to be giving the schools a recording of the sirens so they can play it over their PA system, kind of
Okay.
simulate a real event. And then it's going to be up to schools whether or not they use that. I know that in talking to some of our schools today, some of them will or may not use that if they have students that are going to be more kind of more bumped out of their resilient zone by doing that. They may not. But a lot of the schools too are taking advantage of an offer from the USGS to send scientists and materials and so on and so forth to teach some of their classrooms. And I know a lot of them have been, taking this as an opportunity to teach students about the volcanic activity potential in the area as well as Lahar's. So.
Right. Thank you. A lot of information. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. All right, so let's move on to police body worn camera. Wow, this is an uplifting meeting.
And we got great stuff going on. And by the way, this is all due to the council, right?
Yeah.
This is a great example of policy put in action by the council by making budget appropriations to enter the ILA, and same thing with body cam. So really, this is all a reflection on your work as well as the staff that carry out your policies. So it's my privilege tonight to be before you to give you a brief update on our police body worn camera program. So I will share a quick PowerPoint, and then after that, I have got some demos to show. Please bear with my technology here. Okay, can you see the full slide deck?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Again, this is just an update for benefit of council that weren't present last year. It was just a year and a week ago that I first came before you with support of Jason Wilson and Mayor Pugh, and presented council at a study session March 8th with a kind of a pitch, right? What is body worn camera? Why should we invest in it? What are the pros, the cons, the costs, and everything? And no surprise, I had full support of the council to proceed forward. So at that point, we started working on drafting policies, doing some demos. We had Carmen started a Sumner Connects page so we could start with some public discourse on the policy formation. Then May 3rd, council passed resolution 1582, which as a governing body, you authorized Sumner police officers to use body cameras in the performance of their duties. I think that's an important statement. And you supported the program publicly and also provided me authorization to move forward with policy development and the procurement process. So I'd done some research prior to my March 8th presentation to council. So we had decided to do a field trial with Axon Corporation. And we did that May 10th through June 7th. We had 4 officers wore body cams during that period to do a field trial. And we produced during that period about a little over 60 videos. Had excellent results. We were very pleased with it. Also during that process and talking to the vendor, we learned about a program that's called Core Plus, which is incorporates new Axon Taser 7s, which have a lot more technology and benefits than our prior electric conductive devices, and a body cam program. So on June 28th, I pitched that to the council during a study session, and again, got council approval and support for proceed with that program. So on October 19th, Mayor Pugh executed the master services and sales agreement with Axon for the core program. Once we were under contract with them, we had access to evidence.com, which I'll show you here at the end. And we started building out our user profiles, user settings, assignments, redaction, classifications, just a lot of work on the back end to manage all this data that we knew was going to be coming. About end of October, beginning of November, we started getting the products coming in. We were just ahead of that supply and demand curve. So we didn't have a real long leg, as I understand they're experiencing now. And as the products come in, everything had to be checked in, inventoried, small asset tagged. It had to be registered into the Axon program and assigned to everybody. Everything down from the battery and the taser and which taser issued to which officer, because everything has electronic record keeping and audit trails. And so it's important to have all that information. So that was a lot of work. Even the Axon, the signals on their firearms in the vehicles, those all had to be registered and assigned. In November, Axon sent a third-party installer out and they installed signal kits in the vehicles. That is a device that when the lights are activated in the car, it senses that and will activate the body cam. In December, we had an implementation manager from Axon working with Southsound 911 that set up an interface between our CAD system, Intergraph, and Axon. So what that enables officers to do is anytime they're dispatched to a call or they call out that they're on a traffic stop, or that generates a CAD event with a specific ID number or case number, we call it, or CAD event number. And the officer and the video and that CAD can now associate themselves to that. And I'll give you a good example of that when we get into a multi-cam and multiple officer response. So that was significant. And then in December, we implemented our taser program. There was some delay in getting Axon to come out for an on-site. So we decided not to delay taser implementation. So we did that first because there were new devices. Every single officer that carries one need to have that training and demonstrate proficiency. So we completed that in December. And then January 24th of this year, we were able to conduct a live in-person, or in some cases we split and did some remote, some in-person, full on-day on-site training. This is for every user across every area of responsibility, from admin back-end users to our record staff. They're going to do case building and sharing, to Maria, our record specialist that's going to be doing the redaction and disclosures. And then finally, the ones that are harder to teach, the cops, right? So we got to teach them, the end user, all the functionality of the cameras, how they work, how to manage their evidence, tag it and everything. So that was quite a feat to do in one day. As far as costs, this is the final cost. It's based on $159 per month per officer. Some of the additional expenses are the redaction licenses, which are required. And then we had to buy additional licenses for non-camera wares. So myself, legal and records. And of course, sales tax. So it ended up being $42,600 a year, or $213,425 for the 5-year period. Now, what benefited this is we were on the 2021 price sheet. So that's locked in. The cost is not going to go up during the duration of the 60-month contract. Again, I think we were wise to do so, given the current supply and demand is going to drive pricing as well as hyperinflation. Halfway through at 30 months, the cameras are refreshed, as well as the charger units. And that's simply to maintain that the nickel cadmium battery that's built into the camera itself has the ability to maintain a memory and keep a charge during their patrol shifts. According to Axon, by bundling, there was a number of services and things versus the a la carte, where we're paying per device, paying per the amount of storage. We save about $63,000 or a little over $1,000 a month by doing this program. Where we're at today, all the uniformed patrol officers and our community service officer wear a body cam on duty, and they have since 5 o'clock on January 24th. As of March, when I had to have this deck submitted, we had about 11,000 videos and photos uploaded to our Axon account. Today, and you'll see we're at 13,006. Legal has had 2 third-party public records requests that required redaction and release of video. I've got a little sample of one of those today. Our videos, just for information, follow a retention schedule that's set by the Secretary of State, and it's held anywhere between a minimum of 60 days for a non-significant event, all the way up to 3 years, or in some cases, depending on the nature of what evidence is caught on that video, could be permanently, right? So if it involves officer wrongdoing, or if it captures evidence of a felony or a homicide, things that don't have statute of limitations. But anywhere in between there, we currently have 11 different retention categories that the officers flag the evidence for. And it's the officers, after they capture the video, they have a number of ways that they can go in and tag it to that CAD event, which will have a unique ID, enter the type of video, like if it's a welfare check, traffic stop, CAD auto tagging will also do that for them. And then the retention classification. If it's different than what's pre-built in, they can change it, right? Because we know that not every call type may be shots fired, but the officers go and they don't see anything and there's nothing done. Chances are that wouldn't generate a video, but it gives the officers ultimately are the ones responsible for accurate data, tagging, and classifications. So before I show the back end of evidence.com and some of the sample video, does anybody have any questions at this point?
So I have a question. It said 1,100. Is
Correct.
it 1,100 or 11,000?
1,100.
1,100. Okay, you said thousands.
I'm sorry.
So that's an awful lot.
That would be a lot
Manage.
for an agency our size.
Yeah. Okay. But
Any
no,
other questions?
well, I just want to say I appreciate all the work that's gone into it, and then also that the fact that we were ahead of the game instead of like other agencies that are trying to catch up now and ordering. So thanks for all the work that you and Andrea have done on it.
You bet.
Councilmember Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Chief, excellent presentation, really good information. I'm curious if you, does this add a lot to the work of an officer when they do have to do all this tagging and creating ID and all that stuff?
You know, it really doesn't. You know, that was part of the concern, and you know, part of officers, you know, okay, just one more thing I got to do, right? But there's an Axon app on their work phone that right after they're done, that they don't even need to download the video yet, and they can tag it on their app.
Oh,
They can tag it when they come back to the station, they put their camera in the docking station, they can do it on their laptop. So there's a number of ways, and the auto tagging certainly makes it a lot easier. And it certainly also makes it a lot easier when there's multiple officers on a scene, like I'm going to show you here in a second.
Okay. Would it ever get to the point, you know, I wasn't there, but the news really blew out of proportion, things going on in Seattle where officers forgot to turn their camera on or whatever, and it almost sounded like they were trying to cover up actions that they took. Is this a newer type of technology where the cameras are always on, or how?
They're turned on when the officer starts their shift, and they're actually constantly recording, but they're not actively recording until it's activated, and then it buffers back 30 seconds and captures the video, and you'll see some of that in the example as well. And then part of the reason for having the triggers, so when their taser's activated, that's probably a use of force or potential use of force situation that will turn on their camera if they forget in the heat of the moment, so to speak. When they activate the lights on the car, they have signal kits that will turn on. If they withdraw their holster, which is in one of my examples, they withdraw their gun from the holster, there's a sensor built into their holster now that will activate their body cam as well as any body cam within a fairly good distance from them.
Okay, good.
Right? 30 yards.
Great. Thank you very much.
You bet. That's actually an excellent segue into my demonstration, unless there's more questions.
Anybody else? I think you're free to go.
Okay. So this is, everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
So this is that, let me start from the top here. This is the Axon evidence.com. So right now we have 1,309 pieces in there. Like I said, it was 1,100 or so last Monday when I put my slide deck together. It's got all, I have eyes on every piece of evidence that's in here since we started, unless it's deleted, which we haven't been beyond 60 days yet. So it's pretty much everything. I've created a few demo clips. So that's located in my evidence. One of the things is I thought unique about this is that this was on January 25th at 1:46 in the morning. This is the night, granted after midnight in the morning, but this is the first full shift on Graveyard that we implemented this. And this is a good example. Not all crimes are committed in the presence of the officer, but driving under the influence is one of those, where having the video, I think, is very beneficial in capturing evidence of a crime. And that's why I wanted to share this one with you. It's not redacted. It's an adult. He's not in a private location, and he's been charged with a crime. You'll notice here the body-worn cameras are GPS enabled, so it shows the location of the incident. And I've made just a short clip of the incident as this was in the middle of the street on Puyallup Street. A motorist called in, a subject apparently passed out behind the wheel. That car in the back is the reporting party. Stayed there till police arrived. Officer Anderson.
Hey. Hey.
Sorry.
Dude, what's going on?
Huh? I'm almost home.
You're not almost home, man.
Yeah, I am. Right around
where
the
do you
corner.
live at?
Huh?
Where do you live at?
Right around the corner.
Oh, around the corner?
Yeah.
Okay, then.
No, I do. I live right around the corner. I dropped off my wife at the workplace and I keep her home. Oh. I'm almost home. I'm sorry.
I don't
apologize.
feel like you're good to drive, man. You've got a bottle of Jim Beam in your
Oh
lap
no,
there.
no, that was earlier today. No.
I can also smell a odor of intoxicants coming from.
No, I'm
your
right
breath.
around the corner. I promise you I am. Like that was there because I picked it up from down there.
And you realize you were asleep behind the wheel?
Yeah,
In the middle of the road?
and I'm right around the corner. I promise you I am.
Alright, just so you know, everything is being audio and video recorded
Okay.
right now, okay?
Can
No, I can't let you drive. I just.
And of course, he just wanted the officer just to let him go. He's almost home, just around the corner, which is not true. And sadly, this individual also had some other prior DUI matters, both in our court and in additional courts. So officer captured the video, the field sobriety tests, everything down to the blood draw on video. So I think that's one of those things that would be extremely helpful in the prosecution of that particular case. As far as a third-party video is concerned that's been redacted, this is one that Maria did that was requested by a third party. So it does have redaction. And this is really illustrative of some of the redaction tools. They use automatic I8 or whatever technology, right? It can detect computer screens, license plates, facial recognition. And you'll notice when the officer, this is a traffic stop on Main Street. When the officer walks up, now he's at block out the individual's picture, but his reflection of the individual in the driver's side mirror.
Number 138.
Main Street in Alder, unreadable tag. It'll be on a gray Chevy Tahoe with a light bar.
When he does call in the plate, it'll be audio.
Main and Alder, gray Chevy Tahoe, light bar, unreadable tag, 2241.
It's under 138. Looks like some kind of temp tag.
Notice the quality even at night is really high quality.
How's it going?
Morning, sorry about that. I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
man,
do
that thing is blinding.
I know, I totally spaced out, and it's hard to find this button, but as soon as I seen you, I hit it.
Okay. Do you have your license, registration, proof of insurance, man?
I have a suspended license right now.
That's fine. Do you have it? You have it on you?
I don't.
All right. So it's a great example of how that redaction software works and what's redacted when we release something to a third-party requester. And the last item I wanted to show you is a great example of not only the sidearm signal kit, but what we call multi-cam function. So this is a clip of a felony vehicle stop. Officer Allensworth was out on patrol, ran a plate. That plate come back to a stolen vehicle. He witnessed the subject go into a business parking lot. He notified backup. They waited. They formed a plan. They went in. They made contact with what's called a felony stop. And let me pull up Rodney's video. Again, it's going to show the geolocation off 24th Street. Go down here. It's going to show sidearm signal activation, firearm draw, generated at 30 seconds. And then Officer Fawcett, who was with him, also drew his firearm, generated a signal kit trip. And then it just shows the clip I redacted or extracted, excuse me. So this one to use a multicam, both cameras didn't start at the same time. So I'm going to choose a multicam. Officer Patton ended up showing up there too after the fact, but he's got a very short video. So we're not going to watch that, but we could watch up to 3. Can only hear video of 1 at a time, obviously, with single speaker on our laptops. So we can choose which video we want to hear by clicking. We'll go with Officer Allensworth as the primary officer. And then we will launch the multicam. And I'm going to speed it up till his was activated at 4:33. And now they're pulling in to make contact. So Officer Allensworth on the left and Officer Fawcett on the right. Video starts after 30 seconds.
Put your hands up!
Right now.
Keep them where I can see them! Kind of went there, it was challenging one, compliant so far.
Very calm, letting
Southbound.
dispatch know everything that they're
Facing
doing.
northbound, south side of the building. And Pacific's arriving.
You want to pull them out on the driver's side?
We got him, Trout. We're gonna start calling him out. We'll call him out on my right side of my car. You wanna hold there? All right, I'm gonna call him back. You ready, boss? Yep. All right. I don't know what they're doing. We're gonna call him out. Driver, open the door. Take both hands up in the air. You're being audio and video recorded. You're in a stolen vehicle. Step out. Put the car in park. Face away from me. Keep your hands straight up in the air. Take 4 straight up in the air. Take 4 steps to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Walk back towards the sound of my voice. Do it now. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. Stop. Go down to your ankles. Cross your ankles. Place both hands on the back of your head. Interlace your fingers. Do it now. Somebody want to cuff this guy? Okay. Don't.
And that's kind of that. That's kind of a great, not only the sidearm signal activation, but you've got the multicam, and it's a high-risk situation that had a potential to capture a critical incident should a use of force occurred there. Luckily, that gentleman was very compliant, and we didn't have an issue or an actual use of force. Trying to figure out how to, there we go. Any other questions?
Have any questions or comments for Chief Murphy?
I had a question. So the dispatch listens in on all the calls, like all the action when you pull somebody over, or like during this call?
No, only what the officer communicates via radio.
Only the original. Okay.
Yeah. So he called it out. He kept them appraised of the status. They typically hold the air during a high risk stop like that. So other officers, nobody's interfering. They can focus on the safety of that situation until it's resolved. So he did a great job. He's very calm, professional, kind of a classic felony stop, if you will. And then captured everything on video all the way up to, booking, frisking, or, searching the guy, interviewing him, reading him his rights. And obviously he had a number of things going on.
And then it was a stolen vehicle. How do you get the notices about, when, do you just have a constant list of stolen vehicles, or?
No, when he ran the plate.
Oh, when he ran the plate, so it's not like you knew that was
No.
what it was. Okay. All right, thanks.
You bet.
Anybody else? No.
Again, I think it's important, I wish the other council members were here as well, but, this is you, the council, the mayor, Pugh, Jason Wilson, the city, invested in this technology, and I think it's proven itself very valuable already. It's good quality, and I haven't had any negative input from officers since we started this.
Yeah. City Administrator Wilson, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Not a question, but just wanted to extend an offer. If there's any council members that would like to spend a few hours with our police department going on a ride along, I encourage you to do so. It's definitely eye-opening to see what our officers are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And I know Chief Murphy would be happy to set that up for you.
Sounds good. All right, thank you. You're muted, Brad.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. All right, moving on. We're going to go down to number 4, which is resolution number 1618, 2023, 2028, 6-year transportation improvement program annual update. They used every word they could think of.
And Mayor, we're actually going to start with the Public Works project update and then move down to the tip.
Oh, yes, I was. I numbered it wrong. So we're going to take that away and we're going to go to the Public Works project update. And that will be Mr. Kosa, I think.
Yes. Hi, Mayor and City Council members. Let me share my screen here. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, it's going to be hard to follow up body cam footage. That was pretty dramatic. So, and very interesting, and just amazing how clear all of that is. You think about how you watch, programs in the past, and it's just amazing how clear all those cameras are. It's very amazing. But I'll be at least somewhat more as compelling, maybe, probably not. But I'm here today to provide some input, provide our little project review for what we're working on in Public Works. This presentation was prepared. We kind of started it last year and started giving this presentation to staff internally, and now we said, well, really, it would be great to give it to council. And then once the new year turned around, it was, we thought we could really provide some good information about all the projects we have going. We have a significant number of projects, and kind of wanted to share some of those with you. We do talk about these in Public Works Committee very often. We have a very nice packet that describes all of our projects, but the nice thing about this is that we get to show you some of the pictures with what this PowerPoint presentation compiled. So this is a picture of Summertaps Highway that was resurfaced last year. So and that's the new resurfaced roadway. Let's get this. There we go. Perfect. So division status in terms of our projects, we have some celebrations. We have I'm really going to talk about the 21-22 biennium. And so the projects that were kind of laid out as part of that, and then also, where we're at, where we're going with those projects. About 14 of them have already been completed. So we're excited about that. We also have about 13 projects that are going to be going into active construction this construction season in 2022. So that's pretty large number of projects that we're about to embark on. We have one project out to bid right now. A number of them are going to be going out to bid in May and then into June and July. So overall, we have 33 active projects that are part of this slideshow presentation, which are our larger capital projects. The challenges we have of our 33 active projects in this slide deck, we have 13 that are over $1 million. So there's a lot of money involved in a lot of these projects. They're expensive and large projects. So adds to the complexity and challenge that we need to complete them. We have a few new projects and some increased scopes along the way that we didn't anticipate in the original biennium budget when we constructed it. We have project costs, which are escalating with inflation. So whether it's our real estate purchases, either small or larger right-of-way acquisitions, real estate prices have gone up dramatically in the past year or two. Same with construction. Right now, we're all experiencing inflation across the board. Asphalt prices are no different and are tied directly to oil prices. So it really makes sometimes even bidding these projects difficult to put a budget together and a program number, because you don't know what oil is going to be in 3 weeks even from now. So Another another challenge to our project is staffing. We just have it's right now a very tight labor market, and we've had a difficult time finding staff to project management staff. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. You see a couple of those icons on the right hand side of this. Throughout the presentation, you'll see especially the red, yellow, and green stop lights. That kind of gives you an overall feeling for how the project's going. Green means go. We are full blast, and we'll be completing the project kind of as quickly as we can. Yellow light, there's usually some reason why, whether it's funding, whether it's right-of-way acquisition, whether it's a long environmental permitting expectation. We've kind of put yellow lights on those. And then we have a few red lights, projects that are essentially kind of at a standstill for the time being. We can talk about that a little bit more in either the staffing discussion, or there's a couple other reasons as well. So you also see those orange construction signs, and that either road work ahead or utility work ahead, and that's what you'll see on those projects that are going out to bid this year. So a quick overview of our staffing status. So I'm the city engineer, and I have a few projects on this list. But aside from that, we really have just a couple folks that are running these projects. Andrew Leach is doing transportation and sidewalk focused projects. We had Jason Van Gilder on staff until the end of last year. He left. He's now a public works director in Idaho. But good luck to him. But we are currently actively looking for a backfill for his position. And that's really a utilities focus, water, sewer, storm focus to that position, everything to do with pipes. And then we wanted to say hello to our new associate city engineer, Alisa Ayala. She started in January, and her focus is that she comes from a construction background. So she's being utilized for a lot of our construction projects coming up, and then also special projects. She's worked on facilities before, so she has a lot of a varied background that is not solely underground or transportation focused. And we also have Robert Wright on staff. He's much more environmental and sustainability. He works works with our NPDES permit, our stormwater permits, and he also is helping on the White River project and some of our storm projects. But really the core team is myself, Andrew, and Alisa for project management. Robbie helps on occasion as he has availability. His focus really is turning toward White River in the near future. So that's that. So we're going to start with the White River restoration projects we have. That picture on the right side there is our overall projects related to the White River restoration. So we have the Stuart Road Bridge. We have the left bank setback levee in blue. This kind of starting from the top. We have the Pacific Point Bar, the Sumner Point Bar area, which is in green. And then we have the large purple area, which is our habitat project, including much of the golf course. We also have utilities that need to be relocated along 24th Street. So we really kind of have 5 projects, although the levee and the Point Bar project kind of combine as their own. We'll go over each one of those in a minute. But first one we're going to talk about is the habitat project, floodplain restoration project, about $60 million. The design is just wrapping up. We are in for our core permit and anxiously awaiting to see if we can get that and then be able to begin on that project. It's a great partnership project with the BNSF Railroad. We'll be excavating up to 8 feet of material out of that purple area, and they will be using that for their staging tracks. So looking at completing that project in 2025 at some point. And right now we are all systems go on that, just waiting for that core permit to get through the process. And feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. But I'll just keep rolling. 24th Street utility relocations. That was that yellow line in the middle of the last slide. That was going out to bid this year. It's some water and sewer line relocations, including a sewer pump station, which is what the picture is there. That's being relocated so that it's out of the purple area. That's about $4 million. Looking to complete that sometime next year. That was also a green light. Our other project, like I said, that Pacific Point Bar and Stuart setback project, it's a little further out, but it's also in line to be completed. We're looking at properties acquisitions right now and looking at about 2024 to complete those property acquisitions. It's just a little bit slower than the other project. We have all of the property for that purple area, whereas this is the blue and the green area. They just, we're still looking to finish our acquisitions, and that's those parcels in red. And once we can get those acquired, then we'll be able to move forward. And really our focus is trying to get that purple area under construction. It'd be a great achievement. So, and then we also have at the beginning of the Stuart Road Bridge project, it's currently going through final design. It expands Stuart Road from the 2-lane bridge that it is today to a 4-lane structure. It also has a shared use path on it. It's the last piece of the corridor between 167 and Lakeland Hills. So everything else is 4-lane except for this one. Unfortunately, it's the most expensive one because it is a bridge. So we've been really focused on acquiring grants for this project. We have about 50% of it funded through grants, but we are still trying to acquire grants for the construction phase. Right now, the project is slated to begin in 2023 or 2024, funding, hopefully with some more funding in that. But looking at getting that wrapped up, it's about a 3 to 4 year project because of the work that has to be done in the water, and there are fish windows involved certain times of the year when you can get in there and do work that there's minimal disruption to the endangered fish in the river. So that one is currently green light. Pacific project is currently going on right now. That's the area in purple. They should be completing that by the end of this year, possibly running into next year a little bit. We'll see how that goes. But so that's the White River restoration projects. Next, I'm going to move to facility projects. The one we have completed was the future library site at the Main Street property demos, the property that was transferred to the Pierce County library system. We did some work on getting that project, getting that property demoed. That was one of our projects. We have the operations facility. This project has been well discussed, and we are almost at a full completed design. We're looking at completed plans for review. They're very close. We're within a couple months of having a final design package, but we also have property acquisition issues. So that's slowed down our, we're kind of at that yellow light phase, right? And we also had this kind of, we had a scope increase. Originally, we hadn't anticipated it to be as large of a project, and it just keeps on, it grew a little bit. So those are some of the headwinds we face as we're looking at these projects, trying to figure out how we're going to complete them. And then, we've gone back to the drawing board a little bit on this project a couple times to not to the beginning, but retooling things and making sure we get it right, because it's a large amount of funds to spend, and it's our long-term facility. So, Councilmember Stuart.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you put your cursor on the two properties on the north of 29th Street that we're trying to acquire?
Yes, those are these right here.
And that's two parcels there, is that right?
Yes, I believe the Buck parcel is this one on the right, and I believe that is under a purchase and sale agreement now, or about to be. But I think the paperwork is in the queue if not. And then the Cabrera parcel is this one here.
Okay, so the one to the right on that picture, just to the right of that cursor, that's going to stay there? We're not acquiring that?
So this here is the Buck parcel, and then there's like a little subdivision of maybe 2 or 3 homes, probably a little short plat. And we're not acquiring that. Those are going to stay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's the operations facility. Next, I have we're going to talk briefly about Rainier View Covered Court. This project is a new project from the budget process perspective, at least. It's a project we've been looking to get completed for a while, but the funding came in last year, and we are currently in design. And the design is slated to be complete at the end of this year. Construction complete in 2023 at Rainier View Park. Another facility item that we have is the Heritage Park remediation. This part of the Heritage Park was a former Texaco and had some underground storage tanks. That if you may have heard some of this in one of the committee meetings, but we are back in the 90s. There was some work done and some investigation done, and then in the early 2010s, some investigation done. But there's never there was some contamination found, but there wasn't really a comprehensive look at that. Now with the amount of work that is being programmed at Heritage Park, it's the right time to look at that site and make sure it's cleaned up. And see what sort of actions need to be taken in order to clean it up if needed. So we are working through that, and we'll be selecting a consultant to start looking at that work. And we're on target for that. Next, I was going to launch into roadway projects, and thank you for allowing us to switch up the project, this project presentation and the 6-year tip presentation. You might see a few of these projects on this presentation, and maybe we'll answer some of your questions for that tip presentation that Andrew Leach will be giving. But first off, some completed projects. We've got some big ones. Bridge Street Bridge, 410, Cannery Way Bridge, but 410 Traffic Avenue interchange. That bridge. We are just finishing up the sidewalk improvements in town. That project is substantially complete, and they're just finishing up the last pay estimates for it. And then we also completed the 142nd Avenue intersection study early last year. So those are some completed projects. Councilmember Potato.
Yeah. So I noticed on the 410 Traffic Avenue interchange that there's damage on the wall, like that railing at the top. Who's responsible for that? Is that the city or is that the state?
We are currently working through that exact question with the state. So we've recognized that, and we've kind of trying to determine whose maintenance that responsibility that is. We'll figure it out and get it done, but it's a discussion topic. So,
and then it seems like there are a number of tire marks on the concrete. Did they not anticipate how wide they needed to make the roadway?
Well, we did have plenty of studies on turning those trucks through those areas. We have auto turn studies of showing how those vehicles will turn through that area. It is tight, clearly. But there's also a lot of trucks. So it doesn't take very many trucks to make a tire mark, unfortunately. Only 1 or 2 or 3. And it looks like there's people doing it all the time. But it's just a couple inexperienced folks, unfortunately, that are making those marks.
Okay.
Any sort of damage to their vehicle, most people are able to get through there just fine.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
City Administrator Wilson.
Mayor, I just want to point out to council, you're probably looking at this like, oh my gosh, we cut the ribbon on Cannery Way Bridge a long time ago. Why is this still on Mr. Cose's presentation? And I think this is just a good reminder that, we close these projects out and we cut the ribbon and we think we're done, but really the staff work on these projects continues for a year, sometimes even 2 years, not just to get through an audit, but to do the final punch list items and close out the files. So while we're on to the next thing, our staff is still working through closing out these big projects. And just wanted to say that's why they're on here if you're wondering.
Yeah, it's a plan establishment period for most of them. The last thing that happens is the landscaper comes in and plants the plants, and then it's they have a warranty on those plants. So that extends the length of everything 1 to 2 years, which is unfortunate from a paperwork perspective, but good so that we make sure that we get what we paid for and that we don't end up with a bunch of dead plants along the way. So anyway, moving on. First project we'll be talking about is the Alder and Kincaid Utility Improvements Project. You've seen a lot about this lately. It's out of the Main Street visioning, and really you can see it's the development of the Cherry and Kincaid streets into the Woonerf configuration, as well as the intersection at Main Street. That's the nice picture on the bottom. The really nice picture on the upper left is all of the water lines that we're going to be working on, which is where Public Works gets a lot more excited. We love plazas too, but upgrading water lines is what this project started out as. And I probably should have had that scope creep icon on here too, because this is one of those projects just ballooned and ballooned. Before you knew it, it was much larger than when we started. However, are doing a lot of great things with that. It's a scope increase of all the water line work, and then realizing that if we don't do something with the pavement that we're digging up to put in our water lines, well, this is why that's what we want to do with it. We want to make a nice plaza area for the future build out of Heritage Park and future improvements. And so it's really exciting that we were able to pair these projects. We can save some funds, and we are looking to put that out to bid this next month at this point. So yeah, it's a large project coming out. Originally, we were a little concerned about how it was going to all get together and the funding and all this. And now that's really become clear. And so we're kind of all systems go on that project. Additionally, there's the Academy Street Bike Lanes project. And these two projects actually are going to be bid as one bid package. And that should be a cost savings and takes care of a lot of overlap between those two projects. Water lines on Academy, bike lanes on Academy. It really made a lot of sense to have one contractor doing all of that, and doing it all efficiently and restoring the pavement once instead of twice. So also same track, planning on having construction contract award in the June timeframe, and likely both of those projects will be getting going in early July. Next project is the 166th Avenue East widening. This is our double roundabout out at 166th and Summertaps Highway at the 410 on and off ramp. Also a project you've heard a lot about. Some great news on this project was we received that I think it's $1.3 million federal some federal funds for the final design of the project. So we're working through that final design right now. That kind of slowed things down to get all the federal funding paperwork in order. The good news about that is it's a project that's going to take a little while. We do have that culvert underneath the intersection. That's a fish-bearing stream at Salmon Creek, and we're in the preliminary designs for that large culvert that is going to have to replace a 36-inch pipe with a 20-foot wide culvert. So there's a lot of interested players in that, a lot of regulation and permitting through that project. But that's the only reason it's slow. It's getting through the environmental permitting process. Next up is our Main Street and Wood Avenue intersection improvements. This one is planned to go to construction this year. probably looking, I have complete construction in 12/22, but it probably will be probably in the spring of 23. I do have it as a yellow light only because there's still a few property acquisition question marks out there. And that's one reason why, well, it's probably going to go in that time frame. It's always challenging to get your all of your right of way secured. Additionally to that, we keep looking for additional funding for this project, federal funds that could help. While we have budgeted for the entirety of the project, we're always looking for ways of getting projects funded without using as many city dollars. So we'll continue to do that. Councilmember Potato?
Yeah, to me, it's a little confusing. It looks like there's an awful lot of parking. Is this the future plan or is this current, what it looks like now with the crosswalk?
And this is an older graphic. It's changed a little bit and morphed a little bit since then. But the parking actually, it's replacing parking that exists today out there at the Dairy Freeze and the bike shop. All of that parking is going to be replaced with the parking you see here. And that's why it looks like there's so much parking. And actually there's fewer spots than there were before. There's also some spots that are really, really close to the intersection right now that can't really remain where they are. So we found every possible legal parking spot we could get in here to try to accommodate the neighboring businesses. So, and that's part of the acquisition was acquiring the area in there to be able to get this parking in.
Okay, so the east-west is Main Street and then the north-south is Wood?
Correct.
Okay, I had it switched around. Okay, it makes more sense now.
No problem. Another project that is almost made the completed list is the Summertaps Highway Guardrail Upgrade and Repaving project. I have the picture on the cover of the repaved area, but we've been working on a guardrail project on Summertaps Highway that was funded by federal funds, and that's wrapping up in the next 2 weeks or so. Peterson Brothers was our contractor for that and has been working on that diligently. And is almost done with replacing all that guardrail. So great safety upgrade to the road with utilization of federal funds.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes, so I'm curious. We did get an email about the slow traffic there. Is it because of the construction of the guardrails?
So it's not, and we do have it's been an issue that has kind of been consistent as after we did the repaving project. During the repaving project, we reconfigured Summertaps Highway. Originally, it was a 3-lane roadway section. It was a hill climb lane. They had 2 lanes going up the hill and then 1 lane going down. And when we looked at the repaving of that roadway and we were repaving the whole thing, it's really the time to look at striping and how we've striped the lanes out there, and also safety. So we hired a consultant to say, well, we're putting the surface back. What's the best configuration to put it in? And the conclusion was to take that 3rd hill climb lane and remove it and put in just a 2-lane roadway section. There were really no shoulders on that roadway in the past, and you were very, very close to guardrails as you were going up the hill. And we had a number of roadway departures, people who had either hit the guardrail or gone through it. And with the speed of the roadway being 45 miles an hour, those crashes became some of the most severe in the city. Running and the drop-offs are pretty significant around there. So that was part of the reason for the guardrail upgrade was looking at how to improve safety along the corridor. But with that analysis, the crash reduction was predicted to be 26% fewer crashes along the corridor with the revised configuration to 2 lanes. with the addition of a centerline rumble strip and about 2 feet of actual space between the two-way traffic, rather than just having a 4-inch lane stripe configuration. So there's a little more room out there between the two oncoming lanes. And then also there's room to go somewhere if you do have if you are in a crash configuration, or, if there's somebody coming up behind you, and see if you can get struck, or if somebody comes around, there's room for people to pull off or go somewhere, room for a stalled vehicle to park somewhere where that was in a lane before. We do have a memo on this that I'd be happy to point you to as well, anybody who might be interested. And that's what we used to determine that this was the configuration we wanted to go into. So it's a little bit on that. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you. And that'll be completed in the next, like I said, 2 to 4 weeks probably. We'll start getting into substantial completion and punch list items. Next up is our 160th Retrofit Impervious Sidewalks. This is the sidewalk between Main Street and the YMCA on 160th. This is a project that we originally it's been a slow project. We've had funding through the Department of Ecology for this project, which was great. But it's been, we've had to meet all of their requirements, and it's been a bit onerous to get through the process. So it slowed us down quite a bit into getting this sidewalk in. However, it's out to bid right now. So we're really excited that that's off and will be constructed over the summer. So, excuse me. So that is back to a green light project. Next up is our Rivergroup pedestrian bridge. We have been looking at this. We have funding from Sound Transit for the design of this project, and this has been advancing. We've done our kind of preliminary design, and that's been reviewed and is being approved by WashDOT now to move into final design. That's kind of slowed down the process, as well as more geotechnical boring data that we would like to get, and that this takes a while, and trying to figure out the funding picture, how we accomplish all of the drilling that needs to happen. So it's a little bit delayed, but still generally on track. We don't have any funding for the actual construction of the project.
Councilmember Cole.
And so I'm wondering, because you don't have funding, I see that it does have a yellow light, but does that mean that the schedule that you have laid out here is still sort of a viable schedule?
It's a viable schedule, presuming that funding shows up.
Okay.
And, a lot of times when we are completing projects, we are advancing projects through design, and sometimes we get funding from federal sources. Some of these sources that we are able to apply for grants for are accepting applications a couple years out. For example, we're about to start applying for grants through our federal STP program, and there are $25 and $26. So in order to get funding for a project like this, we have to be applying sooner, and then they program it so that they can have the funding available when we are ready to construct it. So sometimes it feels like we are designing, and then there's a schedule that lays out, well, construction further out. But that's sometimes the only way to get funding for these projects, and that schedule might slip, it might not. It just depends on when funding becomes available, and if it's a worthy project that finds its way into the right grant application or is funded some other way.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, Mike, do I see it leading to other street?
So we have looked at where this generally connects, and one thing originally we had talked about this connecting to Sumner Avenue, and through significant coordination and significant thought of how best to construct it, it made more sense to stay in WashDOT right of way and connect to, I just can't remember what street that's connecting to there without pulling up.
Alder.
Is it Alder? That was my guess. I didn't want to guess wrong. But looking at how it, the challenges of acquiring right of way, and also the challenges of, you still, it doesn't look that bad, but you have to get up and down. You have to get over 410, then you have to get back down, and you have to find some way of getting up and down. And whether that's a spiral ramp, whether it's, something more in the picture on the left, which is, conceptual, but ultimately it made more sense to kind of have a long skinny ramp that stayed in WashDOT right of way, that we did not have to get on the people's property nearly as much. That would be
Right, thank you.
Mhm. All right. Next up is Friar Avenue Trail. This project is currently in design and in environmental permitting. It's a little touchy from environmental permitting perspective because it's right along the White River. So it becomes a little more of an issue, but shouldn't be too much of an environmental issue. We're working through it right now. We also have funding for the right-of-way phase, some strip acquisitions, and then I think one property purchase for this Friar Avenue Trail. They'll be going underneath the Cannery Way Bridge ultimately, but those funds will be coming open in 2023. So that's why this one's slated for then. But the project will continue moving forward, and we're looking at trying to acquire more funding for construction for the project. And we're thinking that would probably be $20-25 if we were able to get some grant funding. We'll be applying for it, and fingers crossed. Another project, this one's a newer project called the Maple Street Pedestrian Signal and Citywide Backplates project. Looking at replacing the rectangular rapid flashing beacons at Traffic Avenue and Maple Street. They are the ones that go and flash when you push the button. Replacing it with something more significant, which would be a red, it could either be a red, yellow, green, or something more similar to this, where it's just a pedestrian signal. You push the button, and given the right amount of time and coordination with the neighboring signals, it can turn red. So that project is underway, going to be in design in the near future. Pretty quick design, but looking at getting it completed next year. We also, as part of that project, will be looking at our signal backplates throughout the city, which is on the left. You can see that each one of those traffic signal heads has a backplate and then a retroreflective border that goes around it. Some do have them, some don't. But they really are of a safety benefit to have that border on them, especially if we have a power outage and a signal is completely out and dark, whether it's a car crash that crashed into the traffic controller or whatever. If it's dark, people miss that it's even a signal there, especially at night. So these retroreflective borders really help in those instances, as well as draw more attention to traffic signals in general. So that project's on schedule, scheduled for next year. Construction. Now we get into some of our roadway preservation projects. This is they're in the budget, but they're just a quick list. I'll go through them quickly. But yearly we do a new paint line application for our Sumner roads. That one is scheduled for this summer, usually July, August timeframe. We'll be looking at a crack seal project. It's been a little bit slowed this year, which is why we had the yellow light, but that's primarily just trying to, with all the different projects we have going, really wanting to make sure we get those big projects out and bid in the next couple of months so we can get started on them as well. So this one's lagging a little bit because of that, but still scheduled for July. Pavement patching, same situation where we look, this is like larger potholes where we can't just do a small fill. We can get a contractor, or we've in the past used Pierce County to do some pavement patching where there's a larger area that just needs to be completely removed and replaced. So that's on schedule, but like I said, a little bit behind those other larger projects. And then another, traffic maintenance item is our plastic markings, our crosswalks. And we have a program to complete all of those. To complete a cycle of those, we replace them every 7 years. So it's every 2 years we have a project that goes out and completes another portion of the city. We also chip seal our roadways and our local roads. That's the application of, you can see the oil that they put down, and then kind of some rock on top of that, and then it's a layer of aggregate, and then also they come back and put a fog coat on top of it. So layer of oil again, asphalt, emulsified asphalt. So you can kind of see it. This is the existing roadway surface. They put the little rocks on and they stick down, and then they come back and coat those rocks to make sure that they don't pop up. First couple days, we usually get complaints about rocks popping up. Sometimes that's before they put that final coat of oil on the top of it. So also in line to get completed this summer. One of our projects that we've kind of paused on was our ITS study, looking at, I know we've done a fiber study in the city recently, but we haven't done a kind of specific study for traffic signals, and that's in the budget. It's just been really difficult to balance everything, and with the staffing issues we've had, it's a challenge to start this when we know it's a little more optional than many of the other tasks we have. Next time, water projects. And one thing that's a little misleading, I talk about water, sewer, and storm projects. Some of those projects we've already talked about involve a lot of funding from water, sewer, and storm. That Woonerf project that we're building a plaza on has somewhere around over $3 million of water funds in. It has some sewer funds in and quite a bit of storm funds as well, upwards of $1 million. So these are more specific water, sewer, storm projects coming up, but a lot of the funds are used in that project, in the White River project. That utilities project that's running underneath the White River project was about $3.8 million, and that's water and sewer funds. So it's kind of it's not specific to one place. It runs into a lot of different locations, but these are the more water specific ones, and you'll see some of the impacts of not having our staffing in this. We've have a few projects that we've got on hold until we get through the big push of getting our other construction projects out for the year. We did complete 3 projects in the water utility, including our Viewpoint booster pump station. That's emergency power there. You can see that lower picture down here. We also completed our south tank drain line repair. This was our drain line that burnt in the fire and was replaced. And then we also completed a large water main project on Hubbard Street that is adjacent to the Duke Realty site, the new warehouse at Tacoma and Puyallup Avenue. But yeah, a couple of these projects that we're looking at, one is our South Tank Seismic Retrofit. That's essentially switching out some of our valves on the South Tank to incorporate seismic valves that will resist seismic activity in the event of an earthquake. The budget there was 2.4, but that'll come down because originally we were talking about having to bolt the entire tank down. And after doing an engineering study on it, it was determined that we don't need to do all of the bolt down procedure. So that'll bring the cost of that project down, and also just the scope in general. We'll also end up painting the tank as part of that project. Another project we're looking at is the Sumner tank recoating. That's just recoating the Sumner Springs Reservoir. So, but that one we've kind of put on hold with trying to get all the rest of these projects out, and only having really myself and two other project managers trying to juggle all of the priorities. Sewer, three projects completed that include a hatch replacement out at lift station 11 back on 16th Street, and it was really rough out there, and we needed to really repave and it turned out great. If you ever go back there, I know nobody really likes to go back there, but if you did, it looks awesome, and it's a great smooth ride. So thumbs up to that project. We also had installed some gate automation at our treatment facility, which means that we now have a gated treatment facility. Before they opened the gates in the morning and it was free for anyone to drive in there. Now we have these automated gates, and the place always has closed gates. And you have to swipe your way in, and that's a much more secure facility. We also completed the Biosolids dewatering improvements. That's that kind of blue thing, and it's a centrifuge that removes water from our solids as they go through the treatment process. So exciting to have those projects done. One of our bigger projects that we're focused on is our dryer repair and replacement. You probably heard about that. Originally, we were trying to figure out how to move forward on it, but that now is we are working with a contractor to get the current one repaired, as well as a study to begin discussing how we're going to long-term replace this piece of equipment that's reaching end of life and is 1.5 stories tall. So it doesn't look that big in the picture, but the building's basically built around it. So it's quite a building, or quite a piece of equipment to just dry the solids that are coming out of our treatment facility. But yeah, that will start this year. Both the study and the study's already going, and we're under contract, or about to get under contract for the repair, short-term repair. Another project is our Auto Lane sewer force main replacement project. That's out at Auto Lane and 166th, trying to do some cleanup work out there for some of our kind of habitual maintenance issues that are out at that location. That one slowed down just because we have all those other projects going, but we still hope to get that one out this summer. Potentially, it's a kind of our bubble project for the 13 projects we're trying to put out to bid. Another project is our aeration control upgrade. That is working with Puget Sound Energy to add some sensors to reprogram our blower operation to increase efficiency at the wastewater treatment facility. That really ends up being a cost savings. It's a great project where PSE ends up paying for part of our infrastructure upgrade, and then we end up getting a power bill that's lower than when we started. So exciting. The only reason it's yellow is it just takes a while to get these things coordinated, and it's something. The actual work is not very much. It's all about getting to the work. So it's exciting to move forward. We've already put some of those energy efficiency projects into place, and I think they said our power bill's gone down 12% from 2020 to 2021. So a lot of great savings at the in the power bill there. That was great. Another project here is our treatment access platforms, looking at building a platform kind of up in here to allow better access to the headwork screens. This is kind of the first place that when wastewater enters the sewage treatment plant, this is where it comes in, and this is where the first cut of things comes out of the waste stream. So things get stuck in there and it needs to be cleaned out. Well, it's just providing a safer access platform for our crews to be able to do that work. So we'll get that one out to bid as soon as the large construction wave kind of subsides. Then also our lift station 2 and 6, we're replacing the control panels there. Same situation. They're trying to get that one out to bid as soon as possible. Storm projects. We've completed the decant facility paving, which was some pavement that we needed to add around our decant facility so that we weren't driving on gravel. We had the 160th storm improvements, which is at 160th and Elm. There was that pretty gnarly ditch where we had a truck overturn. And so now that whole area has been reworked. There's a pipe under there that replaced the ditch. Much nicer roadside safety situation without that really deep ditch. And then also we completed our East Sumner neighborhood stormwater ponds. That project has been around for a long time, but that was a 2-year plant establishment period. So we finished that up a couple months ago. And we're really excited to have that one off the books too. The couple projects we have coming up, one of them is the Salmon Creek Channel realignment. We had, in that East Sumner neighborhood project, we had built a brand new channel, but it hadn't been made, we hadn't activated it yet. We were waiting for plants to establish in it. And we had this big, huge sheet pile wall. You can kind of see it blocking that new channel off. So that fish and the creek didn't go up that way. So we'll be removing those sheet pile and then reconfiguring it to configure Salmon Creek to be in the new channel that we just built, and then it won't be running in the roadside ditch along Summertaps Highway, which was not as hospitable an environment for that creek, fish-bearing creek. That one is slated for this summer and will be completed. It's got a fish window requirement as well, so we're really excited to get that off the books too later this year. Other projects we have, the 24th and 142nd Avenue intersection treatment. It's a project to provide a water quality facility right here that for some reason never got installed. So we identified that as a need and wanted to get that installed, and we're working through that. Also just a little bit slow because of our other projects we have going. And the other one, similar, is a new trunk line relocation at 63rd Street Court East, reconfiguring the condition up there because there is a pipe that runs underneath a home and really would be better served to route down and through the 63rd Street Court East and connect to a main in Parker. So we're looking at doing that work. Also, just kind of second priority work. And then finally, Salmon Creek culvert replacements. We've been looking at getting design done for a number of the culverts along Salmon Creek. They are obstructions to fish. And so looking at ways to, some of them are on public property, some of them are on private property, but looking at getting designs put together so that we can go in and when the situation is right, be able to upgrade the culverts that are there to something fish passable. So just overall, this is my last slide, project summary. We're looking at, some of our major areas of White River and facilities and roadway, definitely green light. Storm water staffing issues, kind of more the yellow light category. And then, just kind of an overview. Water sewer is also kind of that yellow light category. We definitely have our challenges, having a number of projects and the amount of staff we have that are working on them, but really we're doing our best to juggle and make sure that we advance as many projects as we possibly can. And that's kind of the end of my presentation. So
that's a lot of projects. I wonder what you guys do in your spare time.
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it?
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Kosa on this? Seeing none. Thank you. That was great. Now we're going to move on to the 6-year transportation improvement program. And that would be Andrew.
Yes, good evening, everybody.
just hang in there a little bit longer and we'll get through this item too. A lot of these projects on this list were just covered by Michael. So, but it is that time again for doing our annual update to our 6-year transportation improvement program, also called the TIP for short. So this is looking at 2023 through 2028. Just to give some background on the TIP, but from a couple of RCWs, the city is required to do an annual update to our program. And then this program is filed with the State Department of Transportation. So have to do it each year. This 6-year TIP establishes and prioritizes our kind of street, sidewalks, and trail projects looking out the next 6 years. But with each annual update, it does require us to pass a resolution. So each time it's updated. So this update also requires a public hearing. So the public hearing is scheduled a week from today at the regular council meeting on March 21st. So open that up for public comment. And then we'll look for full adoption on the April 4th council meeting. So you'll see me a couple more times on this the next few weeks. But with that, I'll just pull up the map. So everybody can see the map, all good?
Yep.
All right, so this is just an overall map that lists all the projects here on the table. I was gonna, as I went through kind of these projects, I was gonna be focused on each one on the map, but instead of making everybody sick by zooming in and out, I'm just gonna go and use the table. But if anybody has any questions or wanna look where this at is in the city, please let me know. And any new projects or things that weren't covered in Michael's presentation, I'll pull up the map for. So, but with that, the first part of the table is our arterial street programs. It's with why it all starts with the letter A for arterial. So A1 through A15, these are a lot of our bigger roadways and bridges. As you can see, starting off is our Stuart Road Bridge that Michael talked about up first. So that this project, we're currently looking at doing final design, our environmental and right-of-way acquisitions, and looking to begin construction on the project in 2023, maybe 2024, and try to wrap up here in 2027. We have quite a few different funding partners for this project. The next project is our 166th Avenue East widening. This is on the east side of town where we're currently in preliminary design. And this project has a very significant environmental phase of the project because of the salmon bearing creek that's involved. So it's going to be a lengthy design process to work through permitting and core permits with that. So look for more updates as we go through that process. A3 is our Main Street and Wood Avenue intersection improvements that Michael hit on. Looking to start construction this summer and looking to wrap up next year. It's not a very big project, but the long lead items of ordering new signal poles, those looking, if we were to order them right now, it'd take up to 4 months at the earliest before those would arrive. So that's part of why the construction process will flow into next year. A4 is our Maple Street pedestrian signal, as well as our citywide backplates. Looking at increasing the visuals of those signals and improve driver safety. And let's see, actually the design is just about to begin next month, and we'll wrap that up next year. A5 is the Stuart Road Railroad Crossing. This one was one that Michael did not cover, but mainly because this is a project being run by the City of Pacific. So this is that crossing up north, right next to Stuart Road Bridge. So where there is currently under construction right now. They'll probably end up wrapping that project up next year. They have to do a lot of coordination with the railroad crossing right there, and railroads they got to rework because they're widening the roadway to match the widths of the road on either side. So that railroad crossing has to get widened out as well. Back to the table. A6 is 160th Avenue from Main Street to 64th Street. That's looking to improve and widen the full street with bike paths and sidewalks. The east side of the roadway, that'd be the side, the YMCA Kersey Mobility, that's on. We talked about that earlier. We'll be filling in that gap this year. But the west side, where there's no existing sidewalks, that has still yet to be funded. We do have a couple of development projects starting up that will perform some of those frontage improvements. So a little bit of it will get filled in the next year or so. A7, Puyallup Street and Tacoma Avenue intersection improvements. This is evaluating that intersection and upgrading that signal, as well as providing ADA compliant curb ramps and sidewalks. That we applied for funding last year for this project, but unfortunately we were unsuccessful. But we will be applying for future grants to help fund this signal upgrade. A8 is the State Route 167 I-5 connection project. That's that large WashDOT project. This is one, again, Michael did not talk about because it's all being run by WashDOT, and this is their big gateway program project. And so we, as part of this, and being in the region of the project, we did commit $500,000 to contribute our part to the project. And let's see, I had an update in there, but this was, I think, recently approved under the state transportation package. So they are moving forward slowly but surely on extending 167. A9 is also a WashDOT project on 167, but this is extending the southbound hot lane or carpool lane. We didn't contribute any funds on this one. This is still all WashDOT, but with this one, WashDOT, they're currently working on a planning study of the 167 corridor. That this project is part of that study, but it's not currently funded by WashDOT. So might be a little bit time before they get working on that part. Back to city project, A10 Valley Avenue. This is a new project that we added this year. This is for overlaying the existing Valley Avenue, starting at the 410 kind of interchange there at Galt Street. And we're evaluating how far north we want to go or have funding, or that we'll be able to fund going north. We'll be applying for the WashDOT overlay grant, and that has, I think, a maximum ask of $750,000. So we'll be looking at how far $750,000 will get us moving north. But that's also if we get the grant. So as of right now, it's not officially funding, but we're working on grant applications right now. A11 is the Summertaps Highway and 60th Street intersection improvement. This is looking at redoing that intersection to make it a little bit more safe and friendly. Right now, if you're looking to turn onto, we all know Summertaps Highway from 60th, so right turn only. So let's see, but we have not identified funding for this project yet. A12 is the State Route 410 and State Route 162 interchange improvements. This is another WashDOT-led project. Oops, I forgot. I was supposed to be pulling up the map. Oops. This is why I didn't want to. But that's the interchange down here. WashDOT this project was also part of the state transportation package. This project was approved as part of that project, and it's, I think, basically waiting for the governor to sign off on that package, and WashDOT will be moving forward with it. So this project will consist of redoing the intersections or the interchange intersections on either side of 410 on those on and off ramps. A13 is another WashDOT-led project. That's their Highway 162 improvements. That down there on the south side, so just south of where we were at, and looking at widening that roadway out. This has been identified in several of their WashDOT's planning studies, but the improvements for this section are way out, probably looking at the 2030 timeframe, and it's for the most part beyond the scope of our current 6-year tip, but we'll keep it on there just because someday it's coming. A14 is our Main Street and 160th intersection improvements. We recently upgraded this intersection to a 4-way stop, but as more development occurs and more traffic comes through, we'll be looking at upgrading this intersection to include sidewalk. Not every corner, or well, actually about every corner has curb ramps right now, but just looking at improving it and making more ADA accessible and safe. So this project will be evaluated in the next upcoming years. And then A15 is the Stuart Road corridor ITS improvements. This is up here at the north side of town, this dashed black line. This would be looking at all our signalized intersections up and down this corridor, and looking to coordinate all those intersections for traffic to move through more smoothly and efficiently, especially with more development occurring up in the north end of town, as well as Lakeland Hills area up in Auburn. So that is a future project we're looking for, but is unfunded currently. These, I won't go through every single one of these. These are our collector street programs on our smaller roadways, but just some quick highlights. A few new projects were added. C1 and C3 were added this year, but this is a project we've talked about, our Alder and Kincaid utility improvements. It's broken up into 2 different phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Might ask why we're just now adding this to the improvement program. Well, originally it was just a small waterline replacement program that's now grown into roadway improvements, sidewalk improvements, looking at adding curb bulbs with all that. So also with phase 1, that will also include our Heritage Park Woonerf construction around, looking at Cherry Avenue and Kincaid on either side of the park there, and turning that more into a plaza. So we're really close to getting that project, the phase 1 project, out to bid. Hopefully here in the next couple months, probably towards the end of April, and then start construction later on. Project C2, Academy Street bike lanes, it will be included as part of C1 as it's under a same construction package, just because they intertwine in similar areas. So rather than go through and rip up brand new pavement for one project and come through and rip it all out on another project, or do it all at once. So like I said, that phase 1 project ballooned into a much bigger project. Just kind of see some quick little updates. 160th Avenue, Elm Street, Parker Road. These are all looking at, doing full kind of roadway improvements, adding sidewalks, filling in sidewalk gaps, and adding storm and everything. But just, we've had some recent improvements lately due to development. So we've kind of updated the map. You see these little notches taken out on 160th Avenue. So there was the large housing development that went in here that did frontage improvements on their west side of 160th here and all the way through to Parker Road. So development's been filling in and helping to get a lot of these improvements done for us. But we still got them on the list because still got quite a bit of the corridors to improve. Down at the bottom, C12 and C13. These are new this year as well. The C12 is looking at filling in the sidewalk gaps on Gary Street and Mead McCumber. So that's C12, or these two right here, in between Wood and Valley Avenue on both streets. Just, we've gotten a lot of comments recently, and these gaps being so close to the schools. We did apply for a TIB grant last year to fill in these sidewalk gaps, but we were not selected, unfortunately. So, but we'll add them to the list and look for future funding to get these gaps filled in. This is the same story with a little bit of the same story with C13. The Elm Street sidewalks improvements. This is extending some sidewalks. This isn't, kind of this side of town. So we have like a large 10-foot wide sidewalk that comes down past Valley, and I think this was cut off, but Wright Avenue stops just before Wright Avenue. But we're looking at extending that 10-foot wide sidewalk further down to connect with Siebenthaler Park. With the upgrades coming to the park, we thought it'd be good to get more sidewalk improvement that's extended to reach that park, and putting a new crosswalk across Elm Street here to help account for increased pedestrian activity when those improvements go in. So that was a new project we added this year. Trail programs are the T projects. These were all no new projects added here. A couple of these we touched on already, Friar Avenue Trail, River Grove Ped Bridge, the White River Restoration Project. T2 will include relocation of the Summer Links Trail. And then a couple of these others, Puyallup River Crossing and the Puyallup River Trail Bridge, are identified projects in our Parks and Trails plan, but more planning and funding need to be identified. There are currently none there. I can pull them up on the map though, just to show where they're at. So T5, that is Puyallup River Trail Bridge, kind of connecting from the River Grove neighborhood across the river. That's kind of where the Williams pipeline open area is. And then the CT2 or T4 is providing a crossing here and connecting to Puyallup's, I think, Riverwalk Trail on the south side of the river to our trail on the north side. So those are where those two are located. And then the last page, the R's are just our annual street maintenance programs that Michael touched on, that we'll be tackling a lot of these this summer when we have warmer and drier weather. Just makes it a lot more smoother and easier to do, like our paint line application, our thermoplastic, and then our crack seal, chip seal jobs, and pavement repairs. So a lot of those will be underway here in a couple months. And then down this table at the bottom is just a few projects that we'll be completing here in 2022, which I think most we've touched on in Michael's presentation. The Guardrail project on Summertaps Highway, the 160th sidewalks, the filling in the sidewalk gap next to the YMCA, and then the ITS strategic plan, where we're looking at all our integrating our existing signals. And then the last one here is the current sidewalk project that is just wrapping up right now, where we was funded mostly by Sound Transit grants. That's almost wrapped up. We're just waiting for some better weather. We've got a couple of crosswalks and stop bars to redo and replace with thermoplastic. And then we have some flexible spots where it's called Flexi Pave, this kind of rubberized, flexible aggregate material where we're filling in next to large trees with, so we don't have to damage the existing trees and by cutting their roots. Instead, we're putting in this flexible pavement that can adjust and move with the growth of the root. So, but that requires warmer and dry weather to put in as well. So that project, it will be hopefully wrapping up here by the end of the March, but we'll see with what kind of weather. But with that, that wraps up my quick jump through of the tip updates for this year. So
Councilmember Botetto has a question.
Oh,
so I noticed you're going to increase lighting within the walkable area of the sound, the transit station. Are you going to do any on Thompson, like at Mountain Circle in Thompson? Because that's, people go that way and it's in the winter, it's so dark.
yes. So that we do have a package, and we've been working with PSC on a couple different phases. One phase is improving lighting in core downtown, which is redoing a lot of those existing Cobra head lights, some on Thompson, as well as adding more Cobra head lights on existing poles, but it's spread out through downtown, but definitely a few targeted on Thompson, up and down Thompson. And then the other phase is just adding more street lighting in general, with either like with the current sidewalk program, we installed a bunch of junction boxes and conduit for future street lightings, but those were down big sections down Ryan Avenue, Wood Avenue, and I think a small section on Kincaid. So that will be kind of part of phase 2 of working with PSC to get lights in those areas. We'll just have to work with them on connecting power from existing poles. So sorry, I forgot to hit on that when I talked about that project. But to answer your question, yes, there will be a little bit of lighting improvements down Thompson.
Okay, that's good. And then this doesn't take into the parking garage as part of the traffic improvement plan at all?
No.
Because it impacts, or it's how it's impacting traffic flow probably in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. That project is not currently on our tip. But I know, with the parking garage going in, they're improving Station Lane and that intersection of Station Lane and Thompson. So I guess that is definitely a transportation related project and upgrading. Is that a project we'd want to add to the list? I know it's not currently there, but I can add it if we want to.
Yeah, well, it's right in front of my house, so yeah, add it. I just like to kind of keep track of how it's progressing and what the plans are.
So, Councilmember Botetto, Sound Transit will be coming to council in the next month or so to give you an update on where they're at with the garage. They're about ready to release the RFQ to do a design build process. So that is not our project at all.
Yeah, I know.
It's definitely a Sound Transit project.
Yeah, well, I just thought since some of these other things did mention, sound transit, that's why I was asking. But it's good to know that they'll be making a report to the council.
Councilmember Brown.
Andrew, C9.
Yes.
C9.
What's
So they're gonna make a road between the YMCA and Taps Highway.
I think that's a good question. I know this.
I thought there was a wetland back there.
So let me scroll out here. So C9's looking going to north-south. I was getting mixed up. There was originally plans to go east-west to make another connection here. But I think that road project, that idea was removed, especially with the YMCA's playfields going in. C9 is a roadway project identified as part of our East Sumner neighborhood plan. I believe there are wetlands going through here. I think it was the idea of installing or having that road constructed with development moving forward. So right now, it's not a funded project. It's just a kind of planning phase, been identified as a wanted connection to improve our road network.
All right, so if they did do that, they would have to mitigate the wetlands. Is that right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions? Well, Public Works has been busy, no doubt about that. Mr. Wilson, do you have anything before we adjourn?
No, Mayor.
All right. Now that you're all worn out from all those road projects, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.